Hi there, it's Dr. Sarah Larsen filling in for the beautiful and amazing Dr. Parthenia Grant. She's out on sick leave, and so we are really just sending her our wellness vibe, and we'll be checking in throughout the day on the show. Today is such an important show to me. I've got in studio with me one of the people that I think is the best parent around. I'm so blessed to have him in studio for a lot of different reasons. Coming back in from Norway, and now most recent trip throughout the country. He's the host of Living with Tolle, one of the co-hosts on that show. When a new podcast of theirs goes out, it's often ranked higher than Oprah's podcast and Eckhart Tolle's podcast. That's Living with Tolle expert Greg Larsen. And it is no surprise that we share last names because he's my husband. We're here in studio today. We often get asked to talk about a few topics, and parenting is one of those topics. Parents meet us, and our friends around us with children are constantly calling us up. Our clients, all of them saying, we'd really love for you to share parenting. And so this is conscious parenting today. One of the things that I know is we continue to parent ourselves. Once we're grown so far in our youth, it then becomes our own responsibility. Our parents' job is to raise us so far, then the next level is for us to raise ourselves. And so these tips, these things that we're going to share today are, even if you're not in that parenting role, really, really important for conscious ways of being with yourself, that inner voice within your head that came from your parents. And so welcome, Greg Larsen, to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah Larsen.
It's so amazing that we have two beautiful, amazing children, Jasmine and Tyler. And I think when I met you, that was one of the things that stood out most for me, was how much you wanted to have children.
Well, when I met you, that's one of the things that really stood out to me, was how wonderful of a mother I saw you to be. And was one of the reasons why I fell deeply, madly in love with you, because you were such a loving, caring, giving person. And not only that, the few times we hung out with children, you just gave yourself to them in such an amazing way. And as I've come to learn, our attention is so important for our children. And even before you were a mom, you really went out of your way to give the children we came across your attention.
That was something I learned, and it's based on, and both of us have said this so many times, and we've read this, and we talk about it in our courses and in our classes and with our clients that have children, this on children by the prophet Kil Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life, longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backwards, not tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, and his arrows may go swift and far, letting your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, he also loves as the bow that is stable. That is one of my favorite poems, and we've had that in our home or someplace around us at all times. And I often remind myself, my children are not my children.
That's right.
They're
yeah.
the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. And that's who I am as well.
Yes, yes.
With my relationship with my parents.
Yes.
And to
yeah.
be a stand for that life that's coming through me,
Yeah.
longing for itself as me.
Yeah, I kind of even, it's funny you mentioned with your parents, because I feel the same way with my dad now, is that, and when my mom was still alive, is that they still had, their wishes and their, ideas for me, and so I try to be, courteous and polite and listen to them and honor that they are wanting to share what their guidance is or what their wisdom is. But ultimately, it's like, boy, I have ideas that are going this way, and so even though I want to honor them, and I want to listen to them and acknowledge them for sharing their wisdom and for all the love they've given me and all the support,
Yes.
God is calling me to serve in different ways from what their own vision is able to reveal to them.
And how freeing is that for you when you think along those lines versus that the typical way, feeling guilty or remorseful or afraid of that relationship with your parents? And it's so important to get. There is a stamp of the universe that occurs, that occurred on me at the time that I was born, that occurred on my parents at the time they were born, that occur for my children. And that stamp, I can't even visit what their possibilities are based on the stamp that I've been given.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's, so I was reviewing some of the stuff here that we were talking about on the car ride here. It's like, I already know that they are our kids, Jasmine, who's 8, and Tyler, who's 6. So as I speak today as an expert, I only speak as a father who has an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. Now, all I've learned through their life, I have no idea what they're going to be doing at 12. They'll probably, I don't know, be studying in Europe somewhere for all I know. Who knows what they're going to be doing? It's just like
so funny. When I was pregnant with Jazzy and when we were going into the hospital, even though I delivered 300 babies and I had all of this expectation of myself, I thought I was going to bounce right back. And leaving the hospital, we had this baby little girl, and my thoughts were like, oh my God, I'm going home with this baby. And as a medical doctor who did peds and I had these moments of terror, like, really? It's just going to be Greg and myself at home with this baby? And it's quite often like that when we have these beautiful, innocent souls that have all this possibility, and they look to us as their connection to all source, to all resources, to how reality occurs.
Yes.
We're forming that. So I'd love to bring up some of the points we were talking about in the car, too.
Well, actually, what you just mentioned was kind of a good lead-in, because the first kind of note I had marked down here, on the car right up, we were listening to Deepak Chopra, who's just one of my most favorite spiritual teachers of all time. And this one segment we were listening to, he talked about the deep desire to feel freedom.
Yes.
Freedom is just an essential desire of every being, and and we just go to all extremes to throw off all the shackles, to break through any boundary, to overcome fears so we can feel and experience freedom. And so, as you're mentioning, even when a baby is a day old, it's like when they're out and about, they're already on this quest to be free, to experience freedom, to allow that freedom to enable them to give and to share and to express their talents and their gifts and their desires. And so immediately there's all this built up, little container of freedom that's wanting to express itself. So how do you show up as a parent so you can nurture this little being and its eternal quest for being free, so that they can be that expression That's the
question.
million-dollar question right there. Yeah.
We're only born with a couple of fears. We're born with the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. And the rest of them are brought on by our connection through our parents.
Yeah.
Our children learn how to relate to everything in their life based on how we are to it.
That's
and I remember I had a girlfriend that I was a little bit afraid of. Whenever I hung out with her, I was just a little bit afraid of her. And my daughter was with me, and she wanted something of this friend's. And I was afraid to ask this friend for this thing. And my daughter said, "Mommy, what's the big deal? Just ask." And it was really eye-opening for me because I didn't even realize I had that fear in that moment. And my daughter at like 4 years old said, "Mommy, just ask."
Yeah.
And that became such a freeing moment for me. And our kids are our dreams. When we're dreaming, we have no bounds in our dreams.
Yeah.
Our children don't have a construction.
That's right.
And I love the story of a young boy that jumped out of the car with his dad, and he walks over to a police officer. They're all stuck in traffic. And he says to the police officer, "What's going on?" And the police officer points out a truck off in the distance that is stuck underneath this bridge. And the boy and the police officer start walking down, and the police officer is describing all that they've done to try it. They're like, "We've tried to pull the truck, we've tried to reverse it, we've had people push and pull." And the little boy looks at him and he says, "Why don't you just deflate the tires?" And this was not a thought that any of these grown adults had given. He came in and was able to see more possibilities.
Yeah.
And our children, this is how they stand on our shoulders and are able to produce so much more because they're able to see what we've already created and see even more possibilities for that. And that's what we're here as parents. As it takes a village to raise children, we are a village to create these really dynamic places where children can grow.
And it's really essential that we offer that to them because, the world is becoming more complex and, more, I think, larger problems are coming our way. There's really a need for human beings to be their best. So as a race, as a species, we can navigate through whatever challenges lie ahead. We really need our children to be the best they can be for that.
The problems that we are handing the next generation from our climate, from our medical system, from these super bugs, with this advanced technology that's affecting our biology as well. We need their ability to freely think, to continue moving forward with the world.
Without doubt, But I mean, that's such a big topic, freedom, right there. But I mean, ultimately, it's an essential human need, and so again, our kids are still pretty young. So, but every chance we get, just the other day we were walking down the street, and my son was like, he wanted to get some from the store, and he had a few dollars in his pocket, and I was like, well, just go into the store. So I stood outside the store, and I was, looking in the glass. I could see him. He went and he looked for his little piece of candy that he wanted. He went up to the counter and he handed him the money, and then the cashier gave him the money back to change. He went and did this whole thing, complete freedom, autonomy, and yet he was never, I was right outside the door. He could see me, but he had the freedom to explore that situation. And so really look for opportunities for your kids to be free and to express their freedom and to discover who they are.
We are so glad that you're joining us. This is Dr. Sarah Larsen, filling in for the amazing Dr. Parthenia Grant. My guest in studio is Greg Larsen, author of Better Friends, co-host of Living with Tolle. Please join us in a few minutes. And welcome back. You are listening to Dr. Sarah Larsen, filling in for the beautiful Dr. Parthenia Grant. My guest in studio is gorgeous Greg Larsen, my husband and co-parent. I'm so excited that you're in studio to share some of the things that we've made it a point to really become experts in parenting, because from the very start it was such an important thing for us. And one of the speakers that we were blessed to run across in Nashville at one of the schools that we were participating with there is Kim John Payne, and his work, Simplicity Parenting, because it makes for a beautiful world. We sat through this lecture and a series of his CDs and books. Kim John Payne was just amazing. And we wanted to give the audience the nuggets, these really juicy nuggets that we got from that.
Yeah, the one that always stood out for me was this idea of how kids are always trying to orient themselves. And again, it comes down, I think, to freedom. But the metaphor used was when a submarine is underwater, it doesn't know where it is, so it sends out pings in 3 different directions. And when those pings come back, the submarine is able to chart where it is in the ocean. And so he said that's the same thing with kids. They're doing all these things, whatever it is they're doing, but they're sending out pings, and because they're trying to orient themselves. And so if you aren't, committed, and he made a huge point about you need to discover what your family values are, what's important to you as a family, and then you as parents need to be the ones that kind of are the safeguards of that and are living those and are honoring those. Because if you're saying one thing and your kids are sending out pings and you're not standing ground for those values, they're disorientated and they don't know what's going on, and so they're confused and they're scrambling to reorient themselves again. So it's so important to offer those to your children, so as they're out there pinging around, sending out little pings out to see what's going on, they know where they stand because you know where you stand.
And the job as a family, as a parent, even as a single parent, for so many people, so many of our listeners, so many of you are stability, creating this stable ground based on those value systems.
That's right.
And living, and no one's perfect, but living into those with an understanding that these are our value systems. And as your children are acting out, that's sending out those pings or making requests that either fall within or fall outside of that value system, they're looking to you to really be that stabilizing force for themselves to orient where they are in life.
That's so true, and it goes back to another point that I remember Eckhart Tolle making is, as parents, it's so important to do your work. Because we're always, oh my God, my kids are doing this and they're doing that, and I can't get them to be better. Well, what are you doing to be better? Because ultimately, the children, no matter what you say, they can almost see through that because they're looking at your full actions, and they're so intuitive. So no matter what you're telling them, it's how are you showing up.
And I've found in my practice, a lot of times parents are taking things personally.
That too, yeah.
They're taking the behavior that their child is sharing as a personal thing, making that mean something about themselves as a parent.
I'm in that boat too sometimes.
And it's such an important thing to really not take anything personally with our children and really see it as a pinging system to really reorient the family to your value system and be that stabilizing force that offers freedom while staying connected to what you truly value. That we value our children being able to take care of themselves, and that energy of we can give them a fish or we can teach them how to fish. And so that story with Tyler being outside the store, you're teaching him how to use money, interact, choose what he likes to make that decision.
That's right. Yeah, and what you said earlier was so important, because I just want to go back to that, this whole idea of, how our kids' actions, make us feel.
Yes.
And then, You know, because one thing I remember when we were, you know, we made a choice to always bring our kids into stores, and we just developed little games that allowed them to be there without, and even if there was some sort of, you know, outburst, it was so important for us to do it, because a lot of parents, you know, they get embarrassed because their kids in stores don't know how to respond or act, but you're limiting their freedom. So
it's so great that it teaches us skills, it teaches us patience, it teaches us compassion for ourselves and for our children in those actions. And so we're so glad you're here with us, Greg Larsen.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah Larsen.
And we're so glad that the audience, that you guys are here with us. We love you, and we'll be back with some more juicy parts for you. We are back. You're listening to Dr. Sarah Larsen, and in the house, in the studio, we have Greg Larsen. We are talking about conscious parenting and conscious relationships. And one of the things that taught us so much about parenting was the Center for Nonviolent Communication, which is now called Echo Parenting here in Los Angeles. It's based on Marshall Rosenbaum's nonviolent communication or compassionate communication. And it's so easy once you just get the simple formula for this type of communication, not allowing anything to hurt spirit, physically, emotionally, spiritually, keeping all of that safe.
Yeah, well, I love their little tagline here, which is, you know, raising children with care raises children that care.
Yes.
And that's so important to, you know, give your attention and focus to this idea that one of their main themes is, you know, every human being wants to feel felt.
Yes.
And when kids are younger, especially before they're able to talk, they're trying to express a need. They're trying to share something. And so being able to slow down and be with them, and they have a lot of exercises you can do with children to help them kind of vocalize what it is they're experiencing, but it just gives them a child an opportunity to feel felt. And every human being throughout all of our life, we all want that experience of feeling felt. And so just going through their program and really, you know, shed so much light on how important it is to honor that.
And it's such a simple thing. It's of needs is the way that I remember it, and that they talk about it. O stands for observation. Observe what's going on rather than labeling it in a particular way, observing it. So your child has been watching TV for a few hours. You just observe that rather than saying, wow, you're being really lazy, is giving it a label. Whereas observing it is, I've noticed that you've been in front of the TV for a few hours. F stands for feelings. Expressing feelings, and that's you expressing what your feeling is. So I'm feeling this, I've got so much to do around the house. I'm feeling my feeling around television is evident a lot of times, in that it's harmful to you. My feelings, and you're owning what you feel about what you're observing rather than projecting. You should be another way. You shouldn't watch so much TV. It doesn't help you. You're owning the feelings. And then needs. My need, and it's again going to the person speaking, my need is this. My need for consideration. The volume on television is too loud. My need for spending time with you. My need for connection or communication. You own all of it. And then S of needs, S is making a specific request. Would you be willing to turn off the television in order for us to interact? Would you be willing to turn off the television for an hour and engaging in another activity so the house is quiet? Really, really of needs. O, observation. F, feelings, your own feelings. Needs, figuring out what need is not being met. And then S for a specific request.
And to do that in a way where there's no, like you say, there's no judgment behind it. So you're not doing it from an agitated space. Because when you're just saying right there, it's just very clear communication, very conscious communication. You observing something, sharing how you feel about it, and then, making a request. That's when you did it, very consciously. So to do that in those situations, because a lot of time we don't speak our truth, so we get a little agitated, a little frustration builds up, and by the time we get to this point of, you're watching too much TV, or whatever, you're not consciously communicating that need anymore. You're just like in an outburst, all of a sudden, and they're like, what's going on? It's again, it comes back to conscious parenting. We have all these tools and all these.
Listening. I love that you share that right there, because you have to be able to listen to their response to that. And their response might be, an observation, Mom, I didn't realize this was bothering you. Feeling, I'm feeling under the weather. I've had diarrhea, or I've had a slight temperature. The need, I just need to rest my body. And would you be willing to, and the child, whatever age, making a request, would you be willing to let me watch longer with the volume at a lower level? And that's coming at it from a space of possibilities. You're going in, really sharing what you need. So they're able to hear that the volume's too loud, and to create a solution. They're part of the solution in that scenario.
And within it, to me, it sounds like both people were able to share in a way where they feel felt.
They feel felt.
That's right. They were able to share their truth, and they could tell that they were being listened to, and that they were being acknowledged for what they were feeling, for what their needs were, and there was an honest, conscious exchange there.
Yes, absolutely. And there's so many other principles from that came in from that form of communication. You can find on their website a list of needs and a list of feelings, and I love that list, because oftentimes we don't know how to label what we're feeling, and children especially don't know what to call that feeling, or that
That's right.
They just have a sound or a feeling place of it. And so if you have a list ready to say, are you feeling, is this, I'm observing that you're frustrated, or what I noticed is you're clenching your fist and you're holding down, so here's a list of feelings that I think it might be, and my need to parent you, my need to love you. Would you be willing to share what you're feeling? And you read out a few of the ones that it might be until you have them really in your repertoire of things you can say. Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling hungry? Is it lonely? You need some connection? Sometimes I'll clench my fist and go when I need a hug or connection. And that makes and creates a space for your child to express what's needed.
And in doing that, basically, we're modeling for them this way of communicating consciously, which is the most important teaching tool we have. You can tell them to watch a video, or you can have them read a book, or you can go to a course, but to see their own parent, living this way, being this way, there's nothing more profound to a child. There's nothing more important to a child than to see their own parent practicing what they preach. So.
Yes, and it's so beautiful that it's different for different ages as well. And in the younger years, before about 8 years old, our role as a parent simply is to govern, to govern in a way that allows for their expression and freedom, but limits their choices. We're in a society with too many choices now, from food that they can eat, to clothing, to activities that they can engage in. And so those first 8 years, to really govern what our children's experiences are. Then the next few years, till about 14, we dive into, it might be depending on the maturity level of your child, we dive into gardening. And gardening meaning you weed out the things that are not stabilizing for your child's own value system. They will send out pings, and they will challenge your energy during that time. They'll challenge your parenting, and you garden those out. And then you become a guide. After about 14 and going progressively forward, the relationship that you have with your child is really to guide them. And
that's it right there, yeah, because at that point, then at that point they're capable of, and they're going to express their freedom.
Yes.
And so to guide them in a way where you can coach them to make the best decisions, where you can coach them to explore all the options, where you can coach them or guide them to ask better questions. That's what your role becomes there.
And if they've got a ground basis in identifying what their needs are and what their feelings are, and as the governor at those early years, you've expressed to them feelings and needs. And it can start at any age. I know with your book, Better Friends, that you were able to feel felt by your family, by your father, and he felt.
That's right.
His feelings were felt.
That's right.
In that expression, and wanting to be better friends. So it's never too late to learn this form of communication and utilize it in order to create a new type of possibilities in your relationship with your parents or with your children.
Yeah, because ultimately, parenting, if you're going to make a choice to have children, that is such a huge, relationship. And as children growing up, your parents, that's the primordial relationship. That's the one that really sets the tone for so much in life. So it's very important, really. And that's why I'm so glad that, both of us have been so committed to this journey of being parents and reaching out and learning. And which is one of the other points I want to make, when I was reading here, Echo's website, it's like, parenting's a tough job. And so reach out. There is organizations that offer classes, that offer support. There's things to do in your community. There's so much support. Don't feel like, you can't share your truth, and make yourself isolated in your own, in your own thoughts, in your own judgments, in your own little bubble. It's so important. The communities out there, reach out. We did that. We reached out to Echo. We reached out to all kinds of groups because we wanted to be the best parents we could be.
And oftentimes we talk about how time is limited. I've got so much work. I've got so much. Some of these communities that you go to allow you to create more time because you're more effective at being who you are. Most people, highly effective people, all of the major performers in our world have coaches.
That's right.
And they have people that they can share with and get feedback from on whatever it is that they're experiencing. And that's one of the reasons Greg and I coach as well. It's beautiful to allow ourselves we're continuing to learn more and more to make everyone that we get to work with, their life more efficient and creating more time and really standing in the value systems that they have. That the part that I really want to share again is it's never too late.
Yeah.
If it passes across your consciousness, things about in the current moment come up about your relationship with your parents or come up with your relationships with your children, they come up in order for you to express total freedom around them, possibility around them. And so really look at, with curiosity, with new eyes, wow, what is this about for me? Why is this coming up now? If you're having those thoughts now, and really grow into what you'd like for it to be. It takes a village to raise a child, and you don't need to know how to ask even. Just showing up into these communities, letting yourself be an open space, the asking will happen when you share yourself there.
Or another parent in the community may ask a question and you've been thinking all along,
Yes.
and then the answer that you were looking for and being given to that person, you hear it for yourself. So it's just really important, I think, to find community, to find that guidance, and avail yourself to that wisdom, to those insights, because it's changing. You know, the professionals and the technicians and the scientists are learning more and more and more about what a human being is and what's the best ways to nurture the human being from birth throughout life.
Wonderful. How can people reach you? What's the best way for people to reach you?
Well, I do have this website, Living with Tolle, which is a podcast, and there's videos on there, guided meditations, all kinds of interviews with other experts, some around parenting even. And so again, that's livingwithtolle.com.
That's LIVINGTOLLE. Oh, living with
Tolle,
it's living with and TOLLE.com.
That's right, because it's the teachings of Eckhart Tolle that my co-host and I, we riff on the teachings of Eckhart Tolle. We're both jazz lovers, so we riff on the teachings of Eckhart Tolle to discover, what it is how these teachings can be applied to everyday life.
And then you've got a book called Better Friends.
That's right. Better Friends is a song, actually, that started out as a song and it turned into a book. And the song's theme is about, a child expressing to their father, this need to move beyond the past, to move beyond the wounds, the hurt, whatever it was, and to move in a direction where they can be better friends.
And I'm so grateful you have that. It really helped. We just spent the weekend with my father in Vegas, and after reading that book and going through that experience, my relationship with my father and my family profoundly changed. We just had this fabulous 2 days with my dad in Vegas. I also want anyone who's listening, if you're listening and you don't know what to do, I have a website, www.drsarahlarsen.com. I really, I love everyone that I'm blessed to have in my life, and I look for ways to serve and help others. And so you can always go to my website or send me a little note with whatever you're dealing with. My website, drsarahlarsen.com, DRSARAH Larsen, LARSEN.com. And I'm so glad to answer questions and help in any way that I can with what you're going through. And please come back in a few minutes as we wrap up this show on conscious parenting with the gorgeous, the gregarious Greg Larsen. And this is Dr. Sarah Larsen on CRN Network. You are listening to Dr. Sarah Larsen on Divine Love Talk with Dr. Parthenia Grant. We are sending you such healing vibes. Dr. Parthenia, we love you here, and I want to give a shout out to the village that helps support us a little bit. And right now, our kids are with Uncle Jack, Uncle Jack Bowman. They just love and adore Jack so much. Thank you, Jack, for helping us in all the ways that you do. And we have an extensive family throughout California and Nashville and Minnesota. And so thank you guys, Linda, Dad, Shishi, all of you. It makes a total difference for us.
Yes, it does.
And
well, just as we round up, the one word, as I look on my sheet of paper here, the few notes I wrote, I really want to stress that, I try and be the best parent I can. It's my full intention just to honor my children, their journey, and be their best teacher and their best guide and all that. But I'm certainly not perfect, because it is a tough job. And so I do probably every day have a little, explosion around my kids, either at them or around them. And I'm always quick to apologize.
That's such a big one. Thank you for that, because that is a way to reconnect.
It allows me to reconnect with them very quickly, and they notice that right away. They appreciate that. They know what that means, and they're so, it kind of resets. Even though there was just, like a grumpy dad just showed up for a minute, I immediately apologize, and it resets our course, and we get right back to all the play and discovery and imagination and connection and feeling felt that we were just doing, and that we can still have the rest of the day.
And so the importance of that is so important. For me, as we're wrapping up, but we've just got a couple minutes, I love John Muir. And everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and give strength to body and soul. And the way that I read this in this parenting context and the way that I experience it is we are able to give our kids presence, our reflection, our being a listening for what's going on with them. There is nothing more important. Our kids want us to give them our attention, to be with them where they are in the moment. And that's really gives strength to the body and to the soul when we show up for them. And bringing them out to places in nature where it's not constructed, there's nothing present there.
Yeah.
And so those are my closing thoughts. I'm so excited for people to be able to connect with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg Larsen, for being here. And his website is Living with Tolle. That's LIVINGWITHTOLLE.com. Living with Tolle. Greg Larsen, and this is Dr. Sarah Larsen. Thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, for having me on the show.
My pleasure.